Hello, welcome to the real estate exam prep for the Connecticut State real estate exam. So basically what this is just me going through my notes and going through all the stuff that I was able to find to help get through making sure that I could pass the real estate exam. Just for the state of Connecticut, this does not involve anything from the national exam unless it was something that duplicated within my notes, but it's all basically related to Connecticut because there really wasn't anything out there for Connecticut that I could find except for one or two very shortened versions of things, but all the other states have a lot of information. So I figured I'd go through the books and see what I could do about putting something together for myself. But I figured as long as I did it, I might as well share it with everybody else. So here it is, practice exam. I'm going to go through the questions and then the answers are going to pop up from there. So number one, Connecticut licensing law recognizes the following listing agreements. A, exclusive right to sell, exclusive agency, open listing. B, exclusive right to sell, exclusive agency, open listing, MLS. C, exclusive right to sell, exclusive agency, open listing, net listing. And D, exclusive right to sell, exclusive agency, open listing, MLS, net listing. Give you a few seconds. The answer is A. I'm not going to go through how these answers come up, but just so you know that it's net listing is not legal in Connecticut and MLS is a service. 2. Sharon Buyer called Agent Michael to view his listing on Monroe Street. Sharon does not have an agent. Michael provides a written agency disclosure notice to Sharon stating that he represents the seller. A. Before showing the house, Michael must have Sharon sign an agency agreement. B. Before Sharon views the property, she must sign a dual agency agreement. C. Sharon is not required to sign any agency agreement prior to viewing the property. Or D. Sharon must sign a purchase agreement prior to viewing the property. And the answer is C. Sharon is not required to sign any agency agreement prior to viewing the property. 3. A buyer finds and purchases a for sale by owner home. A broker states an entitlement to the brokerage fee. For this to be the case, the buyer would have entered into the type of buyer-broker agreement with the broker. A. Exclusive agency right to represent buyer. B. Open right to represent the buyer. C. Non-exclusive right to represent buyer. Or D. Universal agency right to represent buyer. And the answer is exclusive agency right to represent buyer. 4. A licensee can do all the following except entering into a written buyer agency agreement except give the buyer information on the licensee firm. B. Provide the buyer with information on mortgage rates and lending institutions. C. Physically show the buyer in-house listings. Or D. Ask the buyer to disclose his or her confidential information. And the answer is D. Ask the buyer to disclose his or her confidential information. Number 5. Under Connecticut licensing law, brokers and agents have to disclose a present and contemplated interest in a property listed with them. A. Only when executing a buyer's broker agreement. B. If they are contemplating purchasing the property for their own account. C. Only when a buyer decides to make an offer. or D, in the listings agreement in any advertisements? Okay, and the answer is B, if they're contemplating purchasing the property for their own account. Number 6, which of the following statements is true under Connecticut law? A, net listings are recognized as listings. B, a broker can accept a net listing if all funds over the stated brokerage fee are received as a bonus instead of a commission. C, Connecticut license laws provide that licensed brokers may not accept a listing that is based on a net price. Or D, net listings require the consent of the seller, buyer, and real estate licensee. The answer is C. Number 7, under Connecticut law, real estate brokers are required to retain certain brokerage records such as offers and counteroffers drafted by the broker's office, contracts, leases, agency agreements and disclosures, escrow, and trust account checks and bank statements. These records must be kept A, 10 years, B, indefinitely by the broker, C, 5 years, or D, 7 years. The answer is 7 years. Letter D. Number 8, the time required for acquisition for prescriptive easements is A, 10 years, B, 5 years, C, 15 years, or D, 20 years. And the answer is C, 15 years. Now remember, if I'm going too fast for this, that's what the pause button is for, so that if you do go and you see that you need to take a little more time for something, please just go ahead and pause. I'm going to try to just go through these as smoothly as possible. Moving on. Number 9, an easement by prescription may be extinguished if the owner takes, obtains, or regains an open and continuous control and possession of the property for A, 15 years, B, 23 months, C, 10 years, or D, 25 years. And the answer is A, 15 years. Number 10, a couple were married on July 4th, 2007. Both individually owned a condominium prior to their marriage in their own name. They decided to keep the condominium units separate. Once they are married in Connecticut, their former properties will A, be owned as tenancy by the entirety, B, be owned with survivorship, C, become community property, or D, remain as separate interest. And the answer to this one is D, remain as separate interest. Number 11, in an involuntary partition action, the following statements are true except A, there is a physical division of the co-owned real estate. B, committees are appointed by the courts. C, courts can never provide equitable relief. And D, partitions cannot always be fair and equitable. Look at those answers. And the answer is C. Courts can never provide equitable relief. Number 12. The Common Interest Ownership Act regulates common interest properties. Which best describes the properties governed by this state? REITs, condominiums, cooperatives, PUDs, condominiums, cooperatives, condominiums, cooperatives, REITs, PUDs, or D, assisted living, condominiums, cooperatives. And the answer is B, PUDs, condominiums, and cooperatives. Just for my own records, PUDs are planned unit developments, and common interest communities are legally described as condominiums, cooperatives, and planned unit developments. 13. Resale documents must be furnished to the buyer or his or her attorney before. Let me try that again. Resale documents must be furnished to the buyer or his or her attorney before the closing or transfer of possession. The buyer's right to cancel a purchase contract is how many days after the resale documents have been hand delivered? A, 10 business days, B, 15 business days, C, 5 business days, or D, 14 business days. And the answer is C, 5 business days. 14. When a unit owner requests a resale certificate from the association in writing, it must be provided within how many business days, and what can the association charge for the resale certificate? A, 7 days and $100. B, 7 days, $125 plus 5 cents per page. C, 10 days and $75. Or D, 10 days, $125 plus 5 cents per page. And the answer is D, 10 days, $125 plus 5 cents per page. $15. Sellers can obtain condominium resale disclosure documents from A, the Secretary of State's office, B, the property manager, C, the association, or D, the Connecticut Real Estate Commission. And the answer is C, the association. 16. In cases of involuntary partition, the owners are advised to A, attempt to resolve the matter since nothing can be done, B, sell his or her share to someone else, C, petition the Superior Court for equitable relief, and D, petition the Superior Court for substantial relief. And the answer is C, petition the Supreme Court for equitable relief. When a petition is involuntary, the owner must petition the Supreme Court for equitable relief. $17. Legal descriptions of property in Connecticut predominantly follow the A, meets and bounds method, B, street address, C, government survey system, or D, rectangular survey? And the answer is A, meets and bounds method. 18. The Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection requires that the land surveyors, A, be licensed by the Department of Consumer Protection, Division of Land Surveyors and Professional Engineers, B, have a broker's license, C, be licensed under the Department of Consumer Protection, Division of Surveyors, or D, do not have to be licensed but have to work under another surveyor's license for 5 years. And the answer is A. They have to be licensed by the Department of Consumer Protection's Division of Land Surveyors and Professional Engineers. 19. Questions about boundaries in Connecticut are resolved by A, the Superior Court, B, the Superior Court with the appointment of a committee, C, the Superior Court, a committee, and possibly a land surveyor, and or D, a committee. And the answer is C, Superior Court, a committee, and possibly a land surveyor. 20. The Connecticut Common Interest Ownership Act dictates that a legally sufficient description of a common interest ownership unit must contain all the following except A, the recording date of the original declaration, B, the name of the common interest community, C, the identifying number of the unit, or D, a list of unit owners, their payment history, and telephone numbers. And the answer to this one is D. They don't ask for all this kind of stuff because who knows what their payment histories are. But anyways, it's D, a list of owner units, their payment history, and telephone numbers. 21. Real property taxes are ad valorem, based on value, taxes levied by A, the federal government, B, the state, C, local municipalities, or D, the assessor. What do you think? And the answer is C, local communities. I'm sorry, communities, local municipalities. Moving on. 22. The state requires the values placed on all properties be based on their A, assessed value, B, intrinsic value, C, ad valorem value, or D, market value. Think about that one. And the answer is D, market value. 23. Connecticut law requires towns to revalue properties every blank years by physical observation or statistical analysis. Physical inspection is required every blank years. Is it A, 10 and 5, B, 5 and 12, C, 5 and 10, or D, 7 and 10? Think about that one. And the answer is C. So revalue properties, physically, let's see, so we'll just, it's 5 for the first one. Every 5 years by physical observation, physical inspection is required every 10 years. 24. Monica owns a property with an appraised value of $700,000. The tax rate is 25 mils, or $25 per thousand of assessed value. Compute her taxes. So the answer would be A, 12,250. Assessed value is 70% of appraisal. B, 17,500. C, 14,500. Or D, need more information. So the correct answer, as you go through all this, would be A. Remember, it's talking about the assessed value, and the assessed value is 70% of the appraised value. Twenty-five. Taxes are a lien on the property, A, from the date of evaluation, B, generally from October 1, C, from the date of assessment, or D, once federal taxes are paid for 6 months. And the answer is from the date of assessment. 26. Connecticut statutes generally hold tax liens to a blank year maximum. To be valid, tax liens must be recorded by the agency levying the tax within 2 years from the due date. A, 2, B, 4, C, 10, or D, 15. So the maximum year would be 15 years. 27. Ooh, a long one. Ugh. Liens have been recorded in Waterbury for a property located on Woodchuck Road. These liens are in addition to the tax and municipal liens. They were recorded in the town's clerk's office in this order: February 11, 2000, lien number 1; March 23, 2004, lien 2; April 18, 2003, lien 3; and May 22, 2005, lien 4. All liens were executed on the dates noted. However, lien 3 was recorded after lien 2, which lien would have priority as third in line based on the dates of the recordings. A, February 11, 2000, lien 1; B, May 22, 2005, lien 4; C, April 18, 2003, lien 3; or D, March 23, 2004, lien 2. That's a lot of words. But the answer is C, April 18, 2003, lien 3. 28. State conveyance taxes in municipality or municipal conveyance taxes are: A, based on a phased-in formula; B, paid by the buyer; C, based on a percentage of the selling price; or D, based on a formula determined by each local municipality according to the sales price. And the answer is C, based on a percentage of the selling price. 29. The Connecticut statute of fraud requires that all contracts affecting real estate must be in writing to be enforceable. All contracts over blank must be in writing. A, $1,500, B, $500, C, $2,500, or D, $5,000. And the answer is B, 500. 30. Real estate contracts must contain the basic legal elements to be enforceable. These include legally competent parties, offer and acceptance, legality of objects, and A, no consideration, B, a minimum of 5% down, C, equal consideration, or D, valid consideration. And the answer is D, valid consideration.
31. In Connecticut, minors are generally permitted to void their contracts. In Connecticut, an individual may enter into legally enforceable contract at the age of A, 21, B, 18, C, 16, or D, 25. And the answer is B, 18. 32. Listing and buyer agency contracts are bilateral contracts. To be enforceable, agency agreements must be in writing and contain certain minimal provisions except A, identification of the property involved in a transaction, B, compensation to be paid, C, beginning and expiration dates of the contracts, or D, statement of adherence to fair housing statute. The answer to 32 is A, identification of property involved in the transaction. 33. Licensees receiving money from a client or customer must deposit the money in escrow, A, within 5 banking days, B, within 48 hours, C, within 3 banking days, or D, as soon as possible. The answer to 33 is C, within 3 banking days. 34. If the buyer or seller breaches a real estate contract ending in a dispute, the broker holding the escrow funds has the option to A, deposit the funds with the court, B, deposit the funds with the real estate commission, C, distribute funds to the person not breaching the contract, or D, hold the funds until he or she is told how to disperse them. The answer to 34 is A, deposit the funds with the court. 35. Residential property condition disclosure notices must be given to the property buyer by the seller in all residential transactions, except in the case of A, condominiums and cooperatives, B, newly constructed residential real estate, C, residential units of 1 to 4 families, or D, leases with an option to buy. The answer to 35 is B, newly constructed residential real estate. 36. Which of the following is true for property condition disclosure notices delivered by the seller to the buyer? A, notices must be delivered anytime prior to the purchaser signing a written offer to purchase. B, a report with buyer and seller signatures must be attached to any written purchase agreement. C, purchase options must also have property condition disclosure notices attached. Or D, if the seller fails to comply, the fine is $500 at closing. And the answer to 36 is D, if the seller fails to comply, the fine is $500 at closing. 37. Connecticut requires certain elements in a deed to convey title. Connecticut does not require A, deed signed by grantee, B, deed in writing, C, acknowledgement by the grantor to be his or her free act and deed, or D, deed signed by two witnesses. And the answer to 37 is A, deed signed by grantee. 38. A couple sold their East Haven home to a buyer for $850,000. How much does the couple owe in municipal and state conveyance taxes? A, $2,125, B, $6,375, C, $8,500, or D, $8,750. The muni tax is 0.0025 and the state tax is 0.0075. And the answer to 38 is D. So those are the numbers to remember. Muni tax is 0.0025 and state tax is 0.0075. 39. A couple sold their home in East Haven for $650,000. How much do they owe in municipal and state conveyance taxes? So it's basically just giving you the number without telling you the 0.0025 and the 0.0075. So anyways, the answers are A, 715, B, 4,750, C, 6,650, and D, 6,500. And the answer would be 6,500, letter D. 40. Farm, forest, and open space land is governed by a special conveyance tax in addition to the standard conveyance tax. If the grantor sells a property of this classification within the first year, the penalty on the sale is A, nothing because it was paid as part of an initial transfer, B, 5%, C, 20%, or D, 10% of the sales price. So the answer to this one, number 40, is D, 10% of the sales price. 41. The prescriptive period to acquire adverse possession requires the adverse possessor to have an uninterruptible use up for the period of A, 25 years, B, 10 years, C, 15 years, or D, not recognized in Connecticut? Quick think on that one. And the answer to 41 is C, 15 years. 42. A man believes he has acquired title to a property by adverse possession. To make a legal claim, he must A, bring a quiet title action in civil court, B, bring a quiet title action in criminal court, C, send a certified letter to the owner of the property, or D, record his right to adverse possession in the land records. And the answer to 42 is A, bring a quiet title action in civil court. 43. Connecticut requires anyone of sound mind who prepares a will to be of what age and to have how many witnesses? A, 21 with 2 witnesses. B, 18 with 2 witnesses. C, 25 with 4 witnesses. Or D, 16 with 2 witnesses. Quick think. 43, the answer is B, 18 and 2 witnesses. Moving on to 44. If an individual dies intestate with no beneficiaries, the estate escheats to the state after A, 5 years, B, 15 years, C, 10 years, or D, 20 years. And the answer to 44 is D, 20 years. 45. In Connecticut, the land records are indexed by A, grantor grantee, B, volume and page, C, record legend, or D, grantor. And the answer to 45 is A, grantor grantee. 46. An accurate search of title is most important to A, grantee, B, grantor, C, lender, or D, attorney. And the answer to this one, number 46, would be A, grantee. 47. Christine's attorney has advised her to have more complete examination of the land records. She should request A, title search, B, certificate of title, C, title insurance, or D, abstract of title. 47. The answer to 47 would be D, abstract of title. 48. A marketable record of title is unbroken for A, 40 years, B, 60 years, C, 50 years, or D, as far back in time as it is possible to go. Okay. So the correct answer for 48 is A, 40 years. 49. In Connecticut, title passes on A, delivery and acceptance, B, recording, C, indexing, or D, seller signing. 49. And the answer to 49 is A, delivery and acceptance. 50, recording the documents affecting the title to real estate gives A, active notice, B, actual notice, C, permanent notice, or D, constructive notice. And the answer to 50 is D, constructive notice. 51. Regulations regarding Connecticut licensing laws are enforced by the A, Connecticut and National Association of Realtors, B, Real Estate Commission, C, the Connecticut Department of Housing, or B, Banking Commission Division for Brokers and Salespersons. And 51, the answer would be B, Real Estate Commission. '52. The commission is made up of 8 members. A, governor, 4 persons in real estate, 2 licensed brokers, 2 licensed salesperson, and 3 members of the public. B, 5 real estate brokers and 3 licensed salespersons. C, 4 real estate brokers and 4 licensed salespersons. Or 5, or D, 5 in real estate, 3 licensed brokers, 2 licensed salespersons, and 3 members of the general public. That one, the answer for 52 is D, 5 in real estate, 3 licensed brokers, 2 licensed salespersons, and 3 members of the general public. 53. Greg, a licensed salesperson, does not renew his license. 1 month after the expiration of his license, Greg's last listing with ABC Realty closes. He had worked on this transaction for 3 months. Greg, A, is entitled to the commission as procuring cause. B, is not entitled to anything. C, can designate who in the office receives the commission. Or D, is entitled to a referral fee since he was unlicensed at the time of the closing. Good one. Okay, 53, the answer would be B. He is not entitled to anything because he's unlicensed, and everything goes through the brokerage, not through the real estate agent. 54. Sarah works on an on-site property residential superintendent for House and Home Realty. She is unlicensed, is a regular employee, is employed on-site as a custodian, resides where she works, and engages in licensed activities. Sarah, A, needs a salesperson's license, B, needs a property manager's license, C, does not need a license, or D, can only do clerical work. So the answer to this one for 54 would be C, does not need a license. Okay, 55. Connecticut licensing law requires that in order to sit for a state exam and obtain a real estate broker's license, the candidate must successfully complete an approved school, A, 30 hours of principal and practices, 6 hours of appraisal, and 30 hours of real estate coursework. B, 60 hours of principal and practices, 12 hours of appraisal, and 30 hours of real estate coursework. C, 45 hours of principal and practices, 30 hours of appraisal, and 30 hours of other real estate coursework. Or D, 60 hours of principles and practices, 30 hours of appraisal, and 30 hours of other real estate coursework. Now this one is a real estate broker's license. It's not your agent license, but it was in my work, so I did this anyways. But if it doesn't pertain to you, don't worry if you get this wrong. I'm sure I would get it wrong if I didn't know the answer, because I looked at the answer. But the answer is D. The answer is D, 60 hours, 30 hours, and 30 hours of other coursework. Moving on. 56, another broker question. In order to sit for the Connecticut broker's exam, the candidate must be a minimum of blank years of age and pay an initial fee of A, 18 and $375, B, 21 and $375, C, 18 and $565, or D, 21 and $565. Brokers would need to be 18 and a fee of $565. All right, 57. If a licensed broker embezzles money from a client in a transaction, what is the maximum compensation that a client can seek from a real estate guarantee fund? A, $25,000, B, $500,000, C, the amount of actual damages suffered by the client, or D, 0. A client cannot seek damages from the real estate guarantee fund. The answer to this one is A, 25,000. Even though it says a broker, that's for agents also, it's the real estate guarantee fund. So that is something you should know. 58. Crystal, a convicted felon, has made an application for a real estate license. The licensing body will decide: A, convicted felons cannot be issued a Connecticut license. B, since Crystal was refused a Rhode Island license 6 months ago, she cannot obtain a Connecticut license. C, Crystal has served her time for a felony and can be issued a Connecticut license. Or D, only the commission can determine if Crystal is suitable for a license. Think about those. Jeez. Okay, Crystal, what do you get? 58, the answer is D, only the commission can determine if Crystal is suitable for a license. 59. Business entities such as LLCs, corporations, and partnerships, A, have the option of obtaining a real estate license in the name of the legal entity. B, do not hold licenses, only individuals do. C, must have 51% or more of the individuals who own or control the business entities as licensed brokers. Or D, can have more than one designated broker. Okay, that one, 59, the answer is C, must have 51% or more of the individuals who own or control the business entity as licensed brokers. 60. Non-resident applicants for a real estate license must: A, file proof of licensure. B, file irrevocable consent to suit. B, be from a state with a reciprocal agreement. Or D, provide proof of experience but do not need to pass exam requirements. Okay. So the answer to 60 would be B, file a revocable consent to suit. All right, 61. House Bargain Realty, LLC, does not maintain a definite place of business or display a license or sign indicating the licensee is a broker. This is allowed under Connecticut statutes. B, violates Connecticut licensing law. C, requires the commission to notify the firm it has 60 days to comply with state licensing laws. Or D, requires a hearing to be held before the commission as to the firm's legality of operations. Think about that one. And when you come up with the answer, mark it down, because 61, the answer is allowed under Connecticut statutes. That's basically working over the internet, and you don't need to have a house. You could be in your mom's basement if you want, as long as you are required and fit all the proof of licensing and stuff. You're good to go. 62. A broker candidate must A, have a license for 2 years and sold 12 houses. B, have been licensed 2 years and passed the exam with a grade of 70. C, have been licensed for 2 years and passed the exam with a grade of 75. Or D, have been licensed for 2 years, passed with a grade of 75, and sold at least one house. Okay. And the answer to 62, the broker's candidate must C, have been licensed for 2 years and passed the exam with a grade of 75. 63. Salespersons and brokers are required to take blank hours of continuing education every blank years. A, 12 in 2 years. B, 15 hours in 2 years. C, 9 hours in 4 years. Or D, 12 hours in 4 years. The answer to 63 would be A, 12 hours every 2 years. 64. Change of broker affiliation requires all of the following except A, payment of a $25 transfer fee. B, the salesperson return all records and information to the designated broker. C, the original designated broker give an accounting to the salesperson within 10 days of the return of the information. Or D, the accounting include the amount of commission the broker is entitled to, and those monies will be paid. All right, think about that one. Lots of words on that one. But the answer to this one would be D, the accounting include the amount of commission the broker is entitled to and when those monies will be paid. 65. In their conduct of a licensee, a broker and salesperson must disclose all the following except their present or contemplated interest in the real estate, that's A. B, their fiduciary duties to the client of care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. C, even if the licensee represents a seller, he or she must disclose any known material facts to the buyer. Or D, confidential information obtained under an expired agency agreement. 65, remember it says except. And the answer to 65 would be D, confidential information obtained under an expired agency agreement. Remember that you have to make sure that you are always confidential, and anything that you've heard stays confidential, and you do not share it at any point, no matter if it's an expired one or not. 66. Which of the following can a licensee do when advertising? A. Advertise another broker's property if it is on the MLS. B. Run blind ads because they are legal in a few cases. C. Use just the licensee name in all advertising. Or D. Update property listed with another broker every 72 hours. Look at those answers. Think about which one you think is right, because the answer to 66 would be update property listed with another broker 72 hours. '67. Robert, a licensed real estate salesperson, does advertising on the internet. The advertisement must include all the following except A. The licensee name and office address on every page of the website. B. The name of the broker the licensee is affiliated with. C. The first date the property was updated. Or D. A listing of all the states where the licensee is licensed. Okay, we look through the answers, and the answer to 67 would be C. The first date the property was updated. Doesn't matter when the first day it was updated, it happens to be the most recent time it was updated. 68. When Charles, a licensed real estate salesperson, advertises on the internet, he must A. Place his name and office address on the first page of the website. B. List the states where his broker is licensed. C. Include the name of his broker on the site. Or D. Indicate the dates the site has been updated. And the answer to 68 would be C. Include the name of his broker on the site. '69. Amber is concerned about disclosing off-site conditions. She can best protect herself and her agency by A. Written disclosure to contact the local health department. B. Written disclosure to contact the Connecticut Department of Public Health. C. Do nothing unless she is the selling agent. Or D. Providing a written notice from the seller to the purchaser of the availability of the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection lists. Whew, that was a mouthful. Okay, 69. Amber, what would the answer be? D. Providing a written notice from the seller to the purchaser of the availability of the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection list. '70. A house is for sale. The salesperson sent an email regarding the sale of the house. On the email, the salesperson must A. Include the broker name and office address. B. Include her name, the name of her designated broker and the office address. C. Include her state license number. Or D. List all states she is licensed. Good one. All right, 70. The answer for 70 would be B. Include her name, the name of her designated broker, and the office address. '71. Connecticut licensing law states that A. A licensee must obtain the verbal consent of an owner to place a sign on their property. B. offers must be submitted within 72 hours of the agent receiving the offer. C, without a prior agreement, the listing agent is not obligated to market the property once an offer is accepted. Or D, net listings are legal with a written agreement. As we know, we can cross D off right away because we know that net listings are not legal. So that leaves 3 to choose from. And the answer to 71 would be C. Without written agreement, the listing agent is not obligated to market a property once an offer is accepted. Which makes sense. 72. A postal worker told a broker about several houses where the owners were elderly and considering a move. The broker can pay the postal worker A, nothing because he is unlicensed, B, with a gift card to thank him, C, by suggesting he become licensed and so able to collect referral fees from a broker, or D, with a $100 gift card from each lead, or for each lead rather. Okay, unlicensed, male person. Okay, 72, the answer would be, they can't do anything. You can't give money for referral fees if they're not a licensed real estate person. 73, a man meets a broker at a social gathering. The broker gives the man a card in the event the man's listing home expires from the market. The broker also suggests how he might break the agreement. Which is true for the broker in this situation? A, the broker has broken the licensing law. B, the broker lacked reasonable cause to interfere. C, the broker cannot solicit a property already listed. Or D, the broker was in her rights because she did not seek a property already listed. Okay, 73. Your answer is A. She was trying to show them illegal ways to steal that home away. All right, 74. 74. Escrow funds must be deposited within blank days or the broker will be fined up to blank. A, 3 banking days and $1,000. B, 3 days and $2,500. C, 5 banking days and $500. Or D, 5 days and $2,000. What do you think? Okay, going through. All right, and the answer to 74 will be A, 3 banking days. Now remember it says banking days, this one says 3 days, so even if these numbers were the same, 3 days is not banking days. Okay, 75. 75, the interest from real estate escrow trust accounts is paid to the A, buyer, B, Connecticut Real Estate Commission, C, Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, or D, CHIF. Think about that one. And the answer is C, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. All right, 76. A salesperson is concerned that she might have her license suspended or revoked. Which is the one item she should not worry about? A, waiting 2 weeks to turn over the escrow funds in her possession to her broker. B, disclosing to the licensing authority she is a convicted felon. C, automatically extending a buyer-broker contract. Or D, depositing money into an escrow account. All right. So the answer to 76 would be depositing monies into an escrow account. Okay, 77. A salesperson is heading to a hearing before the Real Estate Commission to determine if her license should be revoked or suspended. Which activity is not a violation of the licensing laws? A, commingling funds for 24 hours. B, giving no agency disclosures to the party as required by Connecticut statute. C, receiving funds from another broker with the knowledge and consent of her broker. D, not disclosing her mother was purchasing the property she sold. All right, 77. The answer would be C, receiving funds from another broker with the knowledge and consent of her broker. 78. The maximum compensation that can be paid from the real estate grantee fund is blank, and the fund cannot exceed blank. A, 25,000 and 500,000. B, 50,000, 250,000. C, 35,000, 250,000. Or D, 35,000, 500,000. All right. And the answer to this 78 would be A, 25,000 and half a mil. All right, 78, done. 79. 79. The first and second mortgage lenders and brokers must hold the appropriate license from A, the Connecticut Mortgage Lenders. B, the Department of Consumer Protection. C, the Connecticut Department of Banking. Or D, the Connecticut Real Estate Commission. Think about those. And the answer to 79 is C, the Department of Banking. 80. Which license must a real property security dealer hold in Connecticut? A, broker's and salesperson's license. B, broker's license. C, securities dealer's license. Or D, insurance license. Going through. And the answer to this one would be B, a broker's license. 80. 80 down. I think there's 30 more to go. All right. There's only 50 on the questions. 50 questions on the test. These are just random questions. These are not the questions that you'll be getting, but they do come from the notes that I've gone through with the books that I've read. So these are definitely the knowledge that you should know. It's going to be very close. Names will be different, but most of these questions should be very similar to what you will see on the test. 81. Jake, a licensed real estate person, intends to have his clients come to him to obtain his first mortgage. Jake must receive a secondary license from the Banking Commission. B, obtain licenses for his whole office. C, hold a first mortgage broker's license. Or D, not sell mortgages. That's a good question. All right, 81. The answer is he has to hold the first mortgage broker's license because he's a salesperson. He's not a broker. So he needs to at least be a broker to sell mortgages. 82. A lender practices illegal, unfair, and abusive lending practices, inducing buyers to purchase more than they can afford. The lender is guilty of A, prime lending. B, predatory lending. C, foreclosure-induced lending. Or D, all of the above. Think about those four answers and come up with the right one, which would be for 82. B, predatory lending. 83. A mortgagor whose property is being foreclosed can redeem the property by A, deficiency judgment, B, redemption, C, law day or bidding successfully at the auction, or D, a law day. And the answer to 83 is C, law day or bidding successfully at the auction. 84. Connecticut Savings Bank has foreclosed on a property located at 2306 North Airline Road in East Haven, Connecticut. Connecticut Savings needs to record A, the deed in Town Hall, B, a satisfaction of foreclosure notice in Town Hall, C, a foreclosure certificate in Town Hall, or D, an assignment to release in Town Hall. All right, 84. The answer to 84 is C, a foreclosure certificate in Town Hall. 85. Chris and Jim owe more on their mortgage than the value of the property. There is a deficiency after the strict foreclosure. Which is true in this situation? A, they will owe the difference between the amount of the claim and the court appraisal. B, deficiency judgments need not be recorded since they are part of the court document. C, a strict foreclosure wipes away any deficiencies. Or D, a lien for a deficiency cannot be ordered. Which one is true? Well, let me tell you, 85, the answer to 85 is A, they will owe the difference between the amount of the claim and the court appraisal.
Okay, 86. Juanita is eligible for a Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, the CHFA loan. CHFA offers loans providing A, foreclosure protection, B, a zero interest rate, C, a below market interest rate, or D, market-based interest rate. And the answer to 86 is C, Juanita is eligible for a below market interest rate. Number 87. Refusing to lend in specific areas based on protected classifications is defined as A, DML, B, redlining, C, violating the SMSA, or D, blockbusting. Now it's refusing to lend, so it has to do with financing. So the answer to 87 is B, redlining. 88. All of the following statements are true about security deposits except A, they can be subtracted from the rent on the anniversary date of the lease. B, interest is paid on the anniversary of the lease. C, interest is only paid on residential units. Or D, interest rates float. So as always, you could pause to give some thought to this, but we're going to move on, of course, because the answer to 88 is A. They can be subtracted from the rent on the anniversary date of the lease. Remember, it says except. Always look at that except word. Some of them are a little tricky. They do a little negative on a negative, all those kind of things. So just be careful. Remember, it says except. 89. If the lessee intentionally damages leased property, he or she has committed a crime and can be prosecuted. If the damage exceeds $1,500, A, it is a misdemeanor. B, it is a felony or misdemeanor. C, the lessor can be fined double the cost to repair. Or D, it is a Class D felony. So the answer to 89 is D. It is a Class D felony. Moving on. Number 90. The following are exempt from licensing requirements for appraisals except, remember the word except is there, persons hired by a municipality to perform revaluations. B, prospecting to list or sell real estate. C, agents doing a market analysis. Or D, agents doing a market analysis for a mortgage company. So the answer here, as we look through all four, would be D, agents doing a market analysis for a mortgage company. '91. A certified residential appraiser is only allowed to appraise A, 1 to 4 unit residential structures. B, 1 to 4 residential structures, vacant or unimproved land. C, 1 to 4 units in unimproved land being evaluated for a condominium. Or D, 1 to 4 units, residential units, unimproved or vacant land for 1 to 4 units. Go through those. And the answer to this one is D, 1 to 4 residential units, unemployed, I almost said there. 1 to 4 residential units, unimproved or vacant land for 1 to 4 units. 92. A supervising appraiser can only supervise up to 3 certified appraisers, 3 provisional appraisers, 3 provisional appraisers or more with a waiver from the Real Estate Appraisal Commission, or D, no limit. Think about that. And the answer to that one is C, 3 provisional appraisers with 3 provisional appraisers or more with the waiver from the Real Estate Appraisal Commission. 93. The USPAP requires all the following from appraisers except the A, appraiser's name typed and printed. B, catalog of license held and license number. C, state of issuance or expiration date of the license. Or D, name and license number of the supervisor appraiser. The answer to 93 is D, the name and license number of the supervisory appraiser. 94. Which contractor does not need to be registered in Connecticut? A, home improvement contractor. B, new home contractor. C, residential construction contractor. Or D, property development contractor. And the answer to 94 is D, property development contractor. 95. A Connecticut general statute requires all municipalities to have A, or an, A, Inland Wetlands Commission. B, Town Government Controlled Zoning Commission. C, Planned Unit Development Commission. Or D, state-run village district. And the answer to 95 is A. Every municipality must have an inland wetlands commission. 96. When a certificate of occupancy is issued for a new home from the town, the new home builder guarantees to the buyer that the home is in compliance with the building code. The implied warranty for building code violations is for A. 3 years, B. 2 years, C. 3 months, or D. 18 months. Think about that one. And the answer is A. 3 years. 97. The guarantee fund for new home contractors is capped at blank for a single claim. A. $20,000, B. $25,000, C. $30,000, or D. $50,000. New home contractors. And the answer to that one is C. $30,000. 98. Mike is advertising resort property in North Carolina for sale. He is advertising in the Hartford Courant and the New Haven Register. In compliance with the Connecticut Interstate Land Sales Act, he must register with the A. Real Estate Commission, B. Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection, C. Connecticut Secretary of State, or D. Real Estate Commission and the Connecticut Secretary of State. And the answer to that one is D. Real Estate Commission and the Connecticut Secretary of State. 99. An individual purchasing property under the Connecticut Interstate Land Sales Act must be presented with a clear prospectus within A. 24 hours, B. 48 hours, C. 72 hours, or D. 5 banking days. What do you think about that one? All right. The answer to 99 is C. 72 hours. All right. We are about to hit number 100. 100. Here we are. Which of the following classes is not a protected class under the Connecticut Fair Housing Laws? A. Learning disability, B. Mental disability, C. Drug addicts, or D. Sexual orientation. Okay, that should be a quick one to answer. And the answer to 100 is C. Drug addicts. 101. A licensed Connecticut broker has refused to rent an apartment to a bisexual couple. The broker has A. Violated the Federal Fair Housing Act, B. Violated the Connecticut and Federal Fair Housing Act, C. Violated the Connecticut Fair Housing Act, or D. Not violated the Federal Fair Housing Act. Those are some tricky words in there. But the answer to 101 is C. They only violated the Connecticut Fair Housing Act. 102. Other than sexual orientation, which classification is only a protected class under Connecticut but not federal status? A. Mental disability, B. Learning disability, C. Familia status, or D. Lawful source of income. All right, let's get the answer to this one. And the answer to 102 is B. Learning disability. All right, 103. In Connecticut, prosecuting violations of federal fair housing laws can be handled by the A. Commission on Discrimination, B. Fair Housing Commission, C. Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, or D. Connecticut Commission on Housing and Urban Development. Okay, 103. Let's get the answer to this one. And the answer to 103 is C. Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. 104. Bianca owns her own home and is not and has never been a real estate agent. She refuses to rent an apartment in her house to a homosexual couple. The homosexual couple files a complaint that she has discriminated against them, that should say. She has not used an agent or no advertising has occurred. Most likely, Bianca, A, has violated the law, B, will be fined a minimum of $10,000, C, has not violated the law, or D, knows they are homosexual but refuses to rent, saying their orientation is not good for her young son, and so is guilty and ready to go to hearing. Okay, the keys there is that she has not ever been a real estate agent, and it's her own home she's going into. The answer to 104 is has not violated the law. 105. Persons claiming to be discriminated against have blank days to file a complaint with the CHRO and can be awarded blank in punitive damages. A, 1 year and $50,000. B, 6 months and $100,000. C, 1 year, $100,000. Or D, 6 months and $50,000. Okay, 105. The answer to 105 is D, 6 months and $50,000. Ugh, a lot more reading. 106. Kyle has listed his cousin's 3-family home in Middlebury. Kyle is aware that the prior tenant's child has had a high level of lead after living there 3 months. The health department orders an abate the lead has been done, but the town wants it retested every year. The day before the 1-year anniversary, the house is sold. The sellers do not disclose anything about the inspection. They were told of the abatement, but not about the annual inspections. A. Kyle is not guilty of anything. B. The buyer's broker should have warned the buyers that the house had contamination and needed re-inspection. C. The buyers have grounds for a lead paint lawsuit against the seller. And D. The house closed and the buyers have no recourse. Okay, lead. Okay, one of the things with lead also is that one of the things with lead is if the house is going to be used as a child care center as well. The answer to 106 is the buyers have grounds for a lead paint lawsuit against the seller. 107. Real estate property securities and real estate syndicate securities are regulated by the A. Real Property Security Commission, B. Real Estate Syndicate for Securities, or C. State Banking Commission, or D. Connecticut Real Estate Commission. And the answer to 107 is the Connecticut Real Estate Commission. 108, we're getting there, folks. A real estate property securities dealers must hold an A. salesperson's or broker's license, B. insurance license, C, broker's license, or D, security dealer's license? And the answer to 108 is C, broker's license. 109. What is the minimum number of investors a real estate syndicate must have? A, 15, B, 12, C, 18, or D, 10? Okay, minimum number of investors. That would be the answer to 109 is C, 18. 110. Which of the following is not true regarding real property securities? A, they are regulated by the real estate license law. B, the fee of $300 to $1,500 is based on total value of interest issued in Connecticut. C, copies of the written statement containing required information given to the purchaser must be retained for 4 years. Or D, they are administered by the Real Estate Commission. That's what's not true. And the answer to 110, the one that's not true, is B. The fee of $300 to $1,500 is based on the total value of the interest issued in Connecticut. 111. Mechanics liens must be filed within blank of work seizing. A, 30 days, B, 45 days, C, 90 days, or D, 180 days. And the answer to 111 is 90 days from the work stop. 112. Maximum security deposit. What is the maximum security deposit? A, 1 month, B, 3 months, C, first and last month, or D, 2 months unless they're over 62, which would be 1 month. The answer to D is D. The answer to 112, the maximum security deposit, is D, 2 months unless they're over 62. All salespersons' licenses expire on what date? A, January 1st, B, October 31st, C, May 31st, or D, July 4th. The answer to 113 is C, May 31st. Then there's just a few more that I put together here, just so you should know. 114 is the 2 most common warranties is the general warrant and the quick claims. The initial salesperson fees and renewal fees for Connecticut for a salesperson is $285 with the renewal fee of each year of $285. There is a one-time payment to the guarantee fund of $20. Ownership not recognized in Connecticut is the tenancy by the entirety. Before a license is revoked, you are entitled to a prior notice and hearing. The Administrative Enforcement Division for Fair Housing comes from the division, the Department of Connecticut's Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. License revoked in another state within 1 year is grounds to not allow Connecticut license. The Real Estate Commission exists under what department? And that is the Consumer Protection Department. Connecticut is a modified title theory state. The bank actually has title to the property but must foreclose to take possession. The mortgage deed, therefore, is the most common form of a deed. When looking at conveyance taxes, The first one to add to your taxes is 0.0025 of the sale price for the town, 0.0075 of the sale price if the house is priced from $800,000 and below, and if it's above $800,000, it is 0.0125. And the owners of the tax sale property have 6 months to redeem the statutory right of redemption. Connecticut requires that all contracts affecting title be in writing to be enforceable due to the statute of fraud. Sellers must provide purchasers with a property condition disclosure report before an offer is made. Municipalities cannot ban conversions. Existing tenants require 180 days notice of conversion. Lost boundaries require a Superior Court action. The decision of the court committee is conclusive unless there is an error in the law. Connecticut has a formula for distributing the assets of the deceased persons who die without a will or his heirs. A spouse gets the first $100,000 plus half the remainder. Children get the other half. If you die without a will and no heirs, the state will take the property by right of escheat. 20 years will pass before the title is transferred to the state. The spouse is entitled to a life estate in 1/3 of the real and personal property to the husband or to the wife, regardless of the terms of any will. Property with farm, forest, or open space tax relief is penalized up to 10% if sold, 10% the first year of ownership, and 9% the second year, and so on. In CT, dower, and curtsy, interest in real estate are not recognized. Neither are tenancy by entirety, the government survey system, the Torrens system of recording title, community property, or the homestead law. But Connecticut has a $75,000 exemption in debt collection procedures. And that's it. That's all the answers and notes that I've taken and I've put together for you peoples. I love it. I think you should be well prepared for the Connecticut real estate license exam with all the stuff that I have in front of you.